Good evening, Broncos country. Welcome into the Denver Bronco Roundup podcast, brought to you by Rocky Mountain Sports Network, sponsored by Morgan Trinkets. And my name is Keith Brugman. I got one question for you. Will the real Denver Broncos fans please stand up? I repeat, will the real Denver Bronco fans please stand up? This is a wrap-up of the season episode. I'm not alone. I'm joined by my good friend, Mr. Trevor Rocket Man Salzman. How we doing, Trevor?
Doing well, Keith. And again, I can't believe it's the off season already, and it doesn't feel like it's been that long since we've seen this Broncos team play in Buffalo. Tough loss, but it seems like the off season is in full force right now because obviously we got some news today. So, but looking forward to get into it and see what this team does this off season. Should be exciting.
Yeah, Ernie Mays, he's here. He's standing up. He's saying hello, Keith and friends, and go Broncos country only. Trevor. I was thinking about and we'll get to that news, man. We got to get to that news because you're right. The offseason's absolutely in full swing, man. It didn't take too long. I mean, geez, we just had season-ending press conferences just a couple days ago, and we got news after that as well. But, fan, Denver Bronco fan, meaning fanatic, meaning watching this team, evaluating this team, coming on these podcasts 2-3 times a week, and joining us as the posse. I think we're all big fans of this Denver Broncos team. Sometimes we like to go ahead and put an outlook out there that's, maybe orange tinted glasses, orange and blue tinted glasses, and I was guilty of that even heading into that Buffalo game. Buffalo was a great team. But sometimes you got to put on the real glasses, and the real glasses, I guess Sean Payton, the ownership group, George Payton put on and made a decision, Trevor. I guess they weren't a fan of one of our special teams guys. Why don't you talk about it, buddy?
Yeah, so today we got some news, a little surprising news at first, but I think and again, it's not surprising knowing who's available and what Sean Payton likes to do as far as his coaching staff. But the Broncos fired special teams coordinator Ben Kotwica today. Ben Kotwica has been part of the Denver Broncos for 2 years, and I mean, again, a little bit of surprising news because this Broncos team finished top 10, top 5, should finish right around there as special teams, and so. A little surprising news, but I'm not. Obviously, there's some names out there, some early favorites that are been mentioned. Darren Rizzi, who was Sean Payton in New Orleans in 2019, was hired by Sean Payton. He's a name that's been thrown out there. There's several names and candidates being thrown out there. Chris Banjo, who's the assistant special teams coordinator, is actually getting interviews around the NFL for special team coordinating jobs. So those are a couple names to kind of keep in mind. As Sean Payton guys that could be the next special teams coordinator of your Denver Broncos. With Banjo, it might be a little too soon because he just retired a couple years ago. But Rizzi, obviously, he has a long track record of being a successful special teams coordinator, but again, has that relationship with Sean Payton. So I think that connection right there is going to be huge and possibly huge. We'll see. Rizzi obviously was an interim head coach with the New Orleans Saints this year after they fired Dennis Allen. So a little bit surprising news, but given the candidates out there and what possibly Sean Payton has up his sleeve, there might be it's not surprising this kind of move would come with those candidates being out there and what they could bring possibly to this Broncos special teams unit.
So I got a question for you, Trevor. Blocked field goal versus Kansas City. One that goes off the upright in a playoff game in Buffalo. Are those the reasons that we see Ben Kotwica out the door? Is that I have trouble, and point something else out if you wish, but it seems like it's two plays maybe that cost this guy his job. It You're right. Top 10, top 5. I'm trying to make sense of it just like you are, and I think a lot of Broncos country is as well. I mean, do you have any other answers for me?
I think another part of this is that I didn't mention there was Mike Westhoff, Kawika and Mike Westhoff. That was a connection that they had together. And when Mike Westhoff, from what Mike Kliss said from 9 News, I read that article. If you haven't, go check it out. It's a great read. But from what he said, it was those two were kind of the pairing together when Kawika first came on when Sean Payton was hired. So Westhoff being gone, that kind of made it Kawika a little bit more vulnerable to be fired or to be let go from his job. So that might be another theory out there. But I'm with you, Keith. This is a big possible hiring for Sean Payton because you want to get this right. If you're going to move off of a special teams coordinator that, again, this unit had its ups and downs like all units usually do, but was pretty solid all year. Like you mentioned, top 5, top 10 unit in the NFL this season. I mean, there clearly seems to be another move that Sean Payton has waiting in the wings that he thinks is an upgrade over what he had with Kawika. Kawika, I think it was more of a Westhoff hire than a Sean Payton hire. Yeah. Sean Payton typically likes to have his guys in place, as you can tell with the staff that's in Denver currently.
Fair enough, man. I got to get to a lot of these comments and a lot of the posse jumping in, but I said it before, and I just wanted to put this into kind of perspective. Our good friends over the K&K Sports Show, Kurt Valente has his Let's Talk Broncos. He was talking little Broncos on Wednesday night, and I was joining in the comments, and he pointed out, Keith, you're the guy who said that we might start Jarrett Stidham this season. And it got me thinking, as we do this wrap up, just how far this team has come. Just, expectations that we had to begin the season. I mentioned just a few before we got out there. I wasn't sure Bo Nix being out there, a brand new rookie quarterback, 6th one taken in the draft. If he was going to be able to be that guy that did walk in, did have that poise, did have that confidence, did have that leadership, did get voted by his teammates to be a team captain, and did start from day one and led this team. I didn't know that Riley Moss was going to be able to come out there and be that competent of a number 2. I didn't know that Marvin Mims was going to take off this season and actually look like a wide receiver. There was a lot of things this team, as we kind of wrap up the season, if we rewind, there was just a lot of surprises that came, or a lot of just fantastic things that developed for this team when we had a lot of questions to begin the season, Trevor.
Yeah, there was, Keith. And here's the thing. We were sitting here talking about it in training camp when it came to Bo Nix, and even the first couple of weeks during the season where his footwork did not look very impressive. So I just think it took some time for him to kind of get his footing underneath him, and it still wasn't great. But he played a really solid rookie season. And this is why you play the games in the NFL, right? Because a lot of these questions you don't know when you don't play the games. What you do in practice and what you hear isn't exactly what's going to happen in games. And as the season continues to go on, we've seen Bo Nix, Riley Moss, Marvin Mims become better football players. And I think that's very important to see. And that's why I like to take that approach to where I don't like to judge these guys based on training camp or what I see in the preseason. I want to see it throughout the whole season. I want to see Bo Nix is this year 1. This is an example. I love seeing what I'm seeing from Bo Nix. He's growing, no doubt about it. But I want to see what Bo Nix does in next year, year after that, when he has more talent around him, when he's getting more comfortable being in the NFL, playing in those big games in the National Football League. So that's why I think that's approach, and that's the things that I've learned being on this podcast and watching football over the years, is taking the long-term approach to watching these guys play and continue to grow, rather than judge these guys when we haven't even seen them in games yet.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I've been down at training camps. We've heard all the reports out of practices about guys doing well, not doing well. I'm not going to go too far down memory lane, but geez, it seemed like just yesterday I was hoping that Randy Gregory was going to be our answer. I mean, think about that. I mean, it's not too far off removed. Scott's coming in. He was just kind of weighing in on those, on the Ben Kotwika, many kickoffs landing around the 5 to 10 yard line instead of the end zone. That, again, I was searching for answers, searching for reasons. Victor, he was the first one that came in with some comments about maybe moving forward. Like I said, this is going to be a wrap up, but this is also going to be just an open end agenda. Lots of different thoughts coming in. One of the thoughts I just wanted to put out there before we talk about what Victor's saying here is I was really impressed with the offseason signings in what we got in that as well as we started to build the season and not know what this team was going to be. But Victor's already looking a little bit forward. Tight end should be something addressed in the draft, and a running back isn't out of the question either. I'll just put it out there, man. Obviously, those are two big ones. If you had to rank your board, not where you have to absolutely draft, but you're ranking your board as far as need, where would you put those two positions, Trevor? 1 and 2, 2 and 1.
Yeah, I mean, he'd be top of the list. I would say running backs for me is number one on the list, and I've said that all year. I mean, I've been pretty consistent with that. I think you have to have a running game for Bo Nix to be successful, and it was clear as day that Sean Payton tried 3 or 4 different running backs throughout the season, and it just wasn't enough, and he can never be consistent with those guys, and I don't know if he trusts those guys, honestly, fully, and it's clear he doesn't. With the amount of running backs we've seen this season, you can never get a rhythm within this offense. The constant rotation of running backs cannot continue to happen, or you will never have a running game. You have to have, again, and I know Sean Payton likes to use multiple running backs, and that's fine because you want to keep your your starting running back fresh. So that I know that we talk about the bell cow running back, the guy that kind of takes the big load of the carries, but you need to have somebody behind him that can also help offload those carries so that you can keep these guys fresh throughout the season. Because it is. I agree with Sean Payton. He said it at his presser. He said it is a long season. You want to keep these guys fresh, and that's I 100% agree with that. You have to keep these guys fresh. The running back position is not an easy one to play when it comes to keeping guys healthy. So that is very important. So running back for me is number one, though. You have to establish a run game, even if it's not going to be a run heavy offense like in Detroit. A lot of these teams that are in the playoffs right now, they have an established run game. You have to get there, and you have to help out Bo Nix going forward.
Yeah. I was going back through and I was just looking at a few stats. I didn't write anything down. It is really kind of, like I said, open agenda. But, the amount of times that Bo Nix was our leading rusher, if I remember right, it was 5 times in a 17-game season that he was our leading rusher. That can't happen, And you said, like you said, you look at that list and it's like McLaughlin, Estime, Williams, McLaughlin, Estime, Williams, it was just like, I don't know if did Bidet ever lead us? I mean, I didn't see that on the list, but as far as a leading rusher, but I mean, it was a different guy each time. Now, Sean did come out. He said, I do believe in a multiple back system. I think we need to have a couple of guys back there. I don't think there's that many bell cows out there, and you don't get that opportunity, honestly, to have that bell cow guy all that often. It would be certainly nice, like he kind of almost alluded to, it's kind of certainly nice if that's what you get, or that's what you're allowed to get, or that's the type of athlete that you get. But you can't really expect that in this NFL. It's really tough to find that guy that's going to be pounding out 1,200, 1,300 plus yards every single year, and just be your guy that just needs to be spelled. You know what I mean? It's a lot more split. It was a lot more like, I hate to bring up, again, bad memories, more like when Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams both had like 800-900 yards apiece. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That was more of what you were expecting out of a good running game this year, out of a good running game in the NFL come 2025. So,
well, and what I wanted to point to real quickly, Keith, is also when Sean Payton has had a running back that he trusts in the backfield, they've been successful. Look at the Reggie Bushes of the world, Alvin Kamara of the world. Heck, he even took Mark Ingram. He had a couple 1,000-yard seasons. Like, when he has a running back that he trusts and he invests in, he will hand the ball off and give them a chance to run the football. But I just think that with the different skill sets and not having that complete back, it's hard to be able to trust one guy just to do everything. So I do believe in his philosophy of using multiple backs. It's just I don't think he has that guy right now in the room to be able to carry most of the load for this offense.
Got to get to Karen. Karen says the loss was a struggle for me, like always, and agreed. It was. It's always hard, but this one, I'll be honest, this was one of the ones I probably took the best of any playoff loss in my entire life, and it's probably because of the last 9 years, Trevor. The last 9 years of sometimes not even coming close, not even sniffing it, knowing that if there was any way that you got in, it you didn't even look good throughout the season. There was nothing really to cling on to and hope for like we had this season, like we have going forward after this season. I mean, this loss, and Sean Payton talked about it. I think George Payton talked about it. I know that a lot of the players talked about it. This is someplace they want to get back to. This is someplace they had to taste and go up against and see what their competition was and say, that's what a playoff team looks like. That's what a playoff team, has to perform like. You know what I mean? That's how important every single set of downs are. All of that. It's all on the line. It's really tough to replicate until you're there. And now we have a full team of guys that have been there and they want it more. And now that's the expectation level. So, yes, it's a struggle. I agree, Karen. But for me, it was one that I was easy to, kind of leap over and already get into the off season and next year, which ties into what you're saying here. Will these lives continue through the off season? You dang right they will. We go live every Tuesday. We go live every Friday. You'll catch us every single week, 7:30 p.m. Things come up every now and then. Don't get me wrong, but that's the schedule as we continue, and then we'll pick up those Sunday games once preseason probably comes around. So, glad to have you here, Karen. But yeah, Trevor, it was an easy loss for me to get over. It didn't hurt like some of the other ones. I don't know how it felt for you.
I mean, yeah, for me, it was frosting on the cake for them to get into the playoffs. Honestly, I didn't have really any expectations for them to beat Buffalo. As everybody knows, I picked them to lose against Buffalo, and that's just the reality of the situation, and that's fine because guess what? You already exceeded expectations this year, and you have the biggest dead cap in all of football this year. So guess what? It can only go up from here. The expectation, you made the playoffs. You were satisfied. Well, not everybody. Most people were satisfied for them just to get in the playoffs because they exceeded expectations. But guess what? Next season, those expectations go higher because you have more flexibility to make your roster better. Both the free agency, the drafts, trades, anything, you have more flexibility to make now and to have in your pocket to make this roster better. This year, you didn't have that flexibility. Last offseason, you didn't have that flexibility, and you didn't even know who your starting quarterback was until the draft. Like you didn't know. You didn't have Bo Nix in your back pocket when you released Russell Wilson. It was Jared Stidham that was the only quarterback on this roster last offseason. It's crazy how a complete offseason can change, or a complete season just changes things, the landscapes of this roster and this franchise. These guys believe, George Payton, Sean Payton, Greg Penner, the ownership group, they believe that Bo Nix is their guy. Now it's just about building around him and putting the right pieces around him that are necessary to build a winner.
Absolutely, buddy. I getting caught up on a few comments. Graham of the Amazing K&K Sports Show. Thanks to you, Graham, for jumping in here. He was just alluding to that Ben Kotwica. This move will be forgotten about if the Broncos are top 3 in special teams. So we can always hope for that. Paul's wondering, do you guys think VJ gets hired? Trevor, I'll take this one to be going with, man. Yeah. I think it was always a question, even when he was getting hot throughout the season. But I don't think these last few games helped his stock at all. Everyone's talking about Sam Darnold's stock after the playoff performance, right? And how many dollars he might pull in. Well, in head coaching or in coaching realms and circles, that's that next opportunity. I think a lot of people are intrigued, but I think he's going to have to prove it probably one more year here in Denver before he really gets his opportunity, before he gets his chance. I just think there's some better candidates, and then you're always looking at, matches and fits, and, from both the coach's perspective as well as the team's perspective. I mean, a lot of people are like penciling, offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators in as head coaches in particular places. And I'm like, I don't know if I'd take that job. I don't know if I'd sign up for that being my one, maybe only opportunity. Sean Payton talked about that, about how he was told maybe this isn't the best opportunity at one point to take a head coaching gig, and he didn't. He fell back and he took a couple more years. So I think VJ is not going to get hired this year, but I think he certainly has a possibility next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be back in Denver, and that's a good thing because in a year from now, if this defense improves and gets even better, then I do think we'll see Vance Joseph, possibly getting hired. But yeah, I agree with you, Keith. Down the stretch this season, and then stretches against really good offenses, this defense, the weaknesses were more exposed to really good offenses. So I think if the Broncos not only need to focus on improving the offense this offseason, but give VJ some more, not weapons, but more players. I mean, improve the defense. You got to improve that defensive line. You got to get more size inside linebacker, cornerback depth, safety. I mean, there's positions on this roster that you can improve. If you give that to VJ, you wonder where this defensive ceiling's at, because I don't think they've even reached that ceiling yet. You're just seeing more players come on, and credit to VJ for Nick Bonito, Pat Surtain playing really well. A lot of these players, Zach Allen playing really well, Brandon Jones too. These guys just are really emerging and given what they did to this roster and helping VJ in this defense out. I think you can only expect going forward that this defense is going to improve, bearing that they, of course, invest more into the defensive side of the ball. You just can't just be the offensive side of the ball that they invest in this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Though there's clear needs on the defense that they have to address as well.
Yeah, and I know this will be an unpopular take, but we're sitting with the number 19th overall pick. I don't know, especially the way that this draft is going to play out. If you're going to have the top wide receiver, top running back, top tight end prospect sitting there, but you may have one of the top defensive prospects sitting there, that's the way that this could play out as far down as we are in the draft, which is a good thing. We made the playoffs and we got multiple picks, and we're not just sitting there starved for picks again. We got money, we got draft picks, free agency should be good. Yes, March is free agency. And our good friend Michael Ronquillo coming in, dropping stars, saying hello, saying good evening, Keith and Trevor, and go Bo Broncos, orange and blue hearts. Big old mile high salute out to you, Mr. Michael Ronquillo, and thanks for jumping in here, being a fantastic supporter. He's been there throughout the season. He knows that we're going all off season, and he's been around for a dang long time. We get a lot of love from the posse, sometimes with stars and sometimes like with comments, just make you blush a little bit. Trevor Graham's coming in here letting you know that you would be a good scout, man. He likes your eye for talent. So
I appreciate that, Graham.
Pearl, good to see you. We'll be talking about Pearl here just in a little bit, but at this point, I would love to see how many people would rank the rookie, how people would rank the rookie QBs. Let's just put it this way. Where would you rank Bo Nix in the rookie quarterbacks that came out this year, right?
Yeah, I would say he's second, right behind Jane Daniels. Honestly, I would, Pearl, if I could give you observation, because I've I've kept an eye on these rookie quarterbacks a little bit as well. It would be Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, probably Drake May right behind Bo Nix. And then you have Penix, and then obviously McCarthy we haven't seen this year, being that because he had two serious knee injuries this year. It's two serious knee surgeries, I should say. So Bo Nix would be second right behind Jaden Daniels, and I think that's fair evaluation. I mean, Bo Nix, that's not taking anything away from how great Bo Nix has been this year. Part of this team getting to the playoffs and making the playoffs is you got to have competent quarterback play. Bo Nix was that and more. So just because Jaden Daniels was great and he's number one on the list, my list anyways, is ranking these rookie quarterbacks doesn't mean anything. It doesn't really harp on Bo Nix this season at all, because Bo Nix has been fantastic. I think that actually Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, and Drake May have very, very bright futures in the NFL going forward. And I was very pleased what I've seen from all three guys, and just fantastic picks from those teams.
Yeah. Three good picks. Drake May, not a lot of people probably even watched Drake May, looked at Drake May because of the team he's on and the season they had. But Drake May really came on and was looking like he has potential to be a good quarterback in this league. I'm right there with you. I'm putting him second behind Jaden Daniels, but this is what I'll say behind that. Jaden Daniels does have a separate aspect to his game. That running game and what he brings is something that's unlike a lot of quarterbacks in this league, including Bo Nix. And that has helped his season this year. That being said, if I had to guess, progression versus regression in year 2, I feel more confident about Bo Nix and him to be able to continue to progress in an upward trend than I would about a Jaden Daniels type of product. Because again, everyone said it from the very beginning, and I'm a big Jaden Daniels fan, but he puts himself out there, he can get hurt. He's a running quarterback as well as a passing quarterback. Passing quarterbacks, go talk to Kurt Valente on Let's Talk Broncos. He doesn't want some quarterback all running around out there. The likelihood of that also being a Super Bowl champion, if you look at that, doesn't necessarily match up. There's been a lot of running quarterbacks in this league, and not a lot of them have taken home Super Bowl championship, trophies. And for those who say, well, Patrick Mahomes isn't really a running quarterback. He's more of a scrambler and pocket manipulator, I would say, than anything else, right? So, right there with you, buddy. Right there with you. But that's just my thought as far as progression and which way, maybe these guys are going. I feel very confident about Bo Nix, and like someone was I forget. But Roy Osborne coming in here. Nix does things well, lots of things to improve on, and I think he will. Now, I don't know if he has lots of things to improve on. I would say that he's got a checklist, but that being said, I agree. I think he will. I don't know how you feel about that, Trevor, but that's my kind of synopsis.
Yeah, I think he will improve on things. George Payton did say the other day during his presser that they had to actually tell Bo, hey, Bo, take some time off. You don't need to be in the building every single day. And that's a great problem to have. That's what you want with your rookie quarterback, with any quarterback. That's what you want. Any of these players. I mean, Sean Payton said it multiple times too. He wants these guys in the building as much as possible. He don't want them, training anywhere else. He wants them to train in the Broncos facility and being around their teammates and whatnot. And so, Bo Nix is just again, I can't compliment him enough. I should say, compliment Bo Nix enough on what he's able to do as far as being, just mindset. He's in football all the time. I mean, he really does have that mindset to possibly be great. Hopefully that hard work will pay off for Bo. But man, I mean, I love seeing that. I love seeing that from and hearing that from George Payton, where, hey, Bo, you have to go home. You can't be here all the time. Take some time off. That's a great problem. I mean, because you don't want to have to beg your guys to come back and come work in the facility and put the work into. So Bo Nix just has that mindset to be great, and I love seeing that, and I love hearing about it.
Yeah, it's good when you can't keep your quarterback out of the facility, and he's a leader, he's a captain. Yeah. He has the belief of his team, the belief of his coaches, the belief of the fans. You know what I mean? Like literally, I think it's the first time in a long time the Broncos country, almost as a whole, feels pretty darn good about at least the position that we're sitting and the future that it holds in regards to our quarterback position. Clayton came in here. He said, hey, guys, smash that like and share. And I never say that enough. So thank you, Clayton. And it's also saying great way to top off a Friday night, guys. It's always great hanging out with the posse, talking some Denver Broncos football. And I also want to talk about our sponsor, our amazing sponsor, Morgan Trinkets. Morgan Trinkets is your headquarters for Southwest Jewelry, Southwest Pottery, estate gold at wholesale prices. They've been doing it for over 34 years. So check them out. I mean, right now, once a nationwide company, they're just in your backyard. Northern Colorado, Southern Wyoming. They're touring all over. They're doing gem shows. They're doing fairs and you name it. I mean, just like anything that's going on. But I'm telling you, that's not the only place you can find them. Head on over to Etsy, Morgan Trinkets Co. That's Morgan Trinkets Co. Co. And type that in. You can see everything they have to offer. You can get in contact with our good friend Pearl, and you can find out if there's any shows going on, if there's any other inventory that she may have stashed away just for you. And all purchases made by any major credit card over $50 is shipped absolutely free. Also, I need to mention, if you're interested in silver, has silver as well, all sterling silver, 100%. Got to check out Morgan Trinkets. It's Morgan Trinkets Co. over on Etsy, Morgan Trinkets Co. Check them out today. So, Trevor, I'll get back to something I mentioned a long, long time ago. A couple of these guys that came in, and Sean Payton mentioned it, and I think it bears mentioning. He thought Malcolm Roach might be the best offseason pickup they had. He talked about the great trade with John Franklin Myers, and getting him in here as well. The additions that they made throughout this offseason that came in and were very complimentary. The only one that I can really think of that was brought in and it didn't work out, unfortunately, for one reason or another, Josh Reynolds. But he was also our leading receiver the first 2 games of the year. Great rotational guys that came into this defensive line that, took this defense from we didn't know what to being one of the top defenses in this league.
Yeah, and then they just you did that with little to no flexibility. That's the thing. Brandon Jones was your highest free agent signing this past offseason, and it turned out to be when he was on the field and when he was healthy. Malcolm Roach, I think that was George Payton that said that he was the best, possibly the best free agent signing that they had. Who could have said that last offseason when they made that move? So kudos to the Broncos front office and Vance Joseph, because Vance Joseph, we have to remind our listeners and remind ourselves, Vance Joseph is also in this discussion when bringing some of these players in to fit his system. And so I think that's kudos to Vance Joseph as well. But yeah, it just loved seeing the signings that they had. They didn't have to go break the bank. And I think that's a lesson that they took away from last offseason as well. Hearing what they had to say at the press conference a couple of days ago was, they're going to be measured in how they're spending their money, and they have more flexibility this offseason. So even some of those small signings can turn out to be something huge and can really pay off for your football team. So I think that we all learned a lesson with that, but they, I think, certainly learned that. And not that they're going to be afraid to spend this offseason, because I don't think they will, but some of those smaller signings that can really, really pay off for them. And you'd love to see this front office and some of these guys just really dive deep in getting those small signings, because that's not always going to be the splashy move. And the splashy move doesn't always work out. Most of the time they don't work out. Those teams that are spending big money in free agency all the time, you have to draft and develop the right way. And some of those smaller signings can turn out to be huge for your franchise moving forward. And we've seen that with this Broncos team this year. Brandon Jones, Malcolm Roach, and then the John Franklin Myers. That was a smaller trade during the draft that came about, then it turning out to be huge for this Broncos defensive line.
Yeah. One of the things that also Sean Payton, this just reminded me, because what you're talking about, the type of guys you bring in here, the type of guys you draft, you develop. He said at one point he was wrapping it up with the team, and he looked at the second level, and he talked about the type of guys that we want to bring in here, right? The type of guys that understand the culture that we have, that they're going to come in here, and he goes, we practice hard. These guys love to practice. These guys got a taste for the playoffs. That's what they want to get to. We need guys that are coming in here, and football is what they will love to do. This is the type of culture that we've now brought about. And he's like, and if they don't have that, we don't need them. They're off the list. It's pure and simple. So to have that idea, that mindset, he even brought up, he's like, man, we tried it in New Orleans. I brought in this guy. He was questionable. And then at the end, he's like, why'd you do it, coach? Why'd you bring me in here? It's like, kind of like, you knew who I was, so why'd you come in? Why'd you bring me in and try to make me into something I wasn't? Hey, if this isn't the mold that you fit, that's okay. You don't need to be here. This is what we need. This is what we want. This is the type of athlete that we're going to bring to the Denver Broncos. I thought that was very, very telling. And it was very telling in the type of guys that they had to, on a limited budget, like you were mentioning, go out there and really work hard to try to find the type of player that you knew that you could rely on, count on, that would come in there, that would put in the work. Maybe he wasn't the top athlete. Maybe he wasn't the big scorer of the offseason, right? But you knew he was going to come in there and he was going to freaking grind. And just one more piece to that, Cortland Sutton, when he was wrapping up at the end of the season, he was saying, and don't forget about all those guys on the practice squad, man. Everyone doesn't talk about those guys on the practice squad and how hard they work and how much they are a part of this team and how much they help make us who we are. You know, this team, this culture, what we're building, and this is probably getting back to what Karen said and the heartbreaking loss, easy to get over because I think of where we're going as a franchise. It's exciting.
Yeah, and then that's a lot of credit goes to the scouts as well. As George Payton said, that our scouts are continually working on the background of some of these players and really finding out who they are as people first and foremost before finding out how great they are at football. Because film, shows one thing, but finding out these guys' personality and how they are is another thing. So those are again two completely separate things. Film's not going to show you. Watching film on some of these players is not going to show you who they are as people and their personality. So that's big time credit to the scouts, the Broncos scouts, for going out there and finding those kind of players that fit the Broncos culture. Team first mentality. That's a big takeaway that I take away from this team this season is a lot of these guys are team first guys, and that's what you love to see. And I can't wait to see what they are able to add in the offseason. More players like that. Obviously, you want the talent, but you want these guys that fit this Broncos culture that they've worked hard to get to this point.
I see Karen here. I had to scroll all the way to the bottom. I'll have to scroll back up to maybe get to a few more questions, but it was a great segue, a great lead into something else I was thinking about during this season. Jonathan Cooper gets a contract, Quinn Miners gets a contract, and Garrett Bowles gets a contract, right? I don't know if there's anybody else, but those three come to mind. Karen was wondering, what's that?
Pat Surtain.
PS2. Yeah. Might as well bring him up. He's a decent guy that might stick around for a little bit. But along those lines, thank you for reminding me. Can't believe I forgot that. I like our O-line, says Karen. Do they all stay? Well, two of those guys I just mentioned on that O-line. How do you feel about this O-line? Do they all stay? Do you see any replacements? And I think we talked about it. There might be competition brought in at the center position. Do you think it's one that, flips that position at all?
Yeah, it depends on where they invest and how they invest in the center position, I should say. I don't know if they're going to spend big money on a center. I don't think so, but I wouldn't be surprised if Sean Payton did spend on a center. He said it in the past. He's not afraid to invest in the center position, and that's included with the rest of the offensive line. And we obviously know where the Broncos have invested in it, and they've invested in their offensive line pretty heavily. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Center, I think that would be a big area where you could possibly upgrade this offseason. There's so many different needs and wants on this roster, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. I don't know where center kind of lies. That would be my biggest question. Where does center lie? I think Wanenberg played fine this year. So I wouldn't feel bad about the center position if he was your starter next year, per se. I think that you still have a very solid offensive line in the top 5 unit, which they were this year, and pass block win rate and run block win rate. So, possibly center, maybe a swing tackle to see where Bailey's at if Bailey comes back, this offseason. So, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to try to invest in this offensive line, maybe more depth per se. Then more than anything, I think you already have your starting unit pretty much in place, other than maybe center, but more depth, and they can always help your roster. And you're always looking to invest in the trenches. And now, when I say trenches, that's offensive line and your defensive line.
Very good, man. Flip it to another position. I went to a few more comments. Karen says we need more safety help, and Paul's agreeing. He says, yes, he wants a vet safety, as well as that tight end we were kind of talking about a little bit earlier. Safety, we just got done talking about Brandon Jones. That was our big investment that we used in this offseason. Brandon Jones didn't look too bad. In fact, he was leading tackler for most of the year. I need to go back and look at the final stat sheet, but was certainly a monster when it came to coming downhill and providing support, and didn't do that bad necessarily at the back end as well. PJ Locke is where we do have some questions. Do you like the idea of a veteran safety? Do you like the idea of a rookie safety? How do you fill that void? And if you had to guess, which way do we go there, bud?
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely need to look at safety as far as upgrading because PJ Locke, I wasn't the biggest fan of PJ Locke starting. I love PJ because he's a long time Bronco. He's been around this organization for a while now. And I would love for him to stick around. I wonder if they may cut him possibly because he's making, I think, $5 million going into next year. That's a lot of money for a backup safety. We've seen what the safety market was last year. And obviously the Broncos moving off of Justin Simmons, but there was other teams around the NFL that was moving off safeties and really opened up the safety market. So I haven't got a chance to look at the free agent market yet because I like to tend to wait until we get closer to free agency. There's always guys that get cut that we don't suspect yet, or guys get re-signed. So if I had to guess right now, I would say they look at safety and free agency, but I think that the draft they'll look at there as well. Both areas they'll look at as far as to upgrade the safety room, inside linebacker the same way. But yeah, that's clear need that safety needs to be upgraded because too many breakdowns and in the secondary, and I just don't think PJ Locke can be your starting safety going into next year. And same thing with the middle, inside linebacker. I don't think you can bring back the same unit that you had this year. So there'll be options out there for this team to upgrade. It's hard to tell. We're still pretty early on where exactly they may look to do that more in free agency or the draft.
Yeah, and Roy Osborne's also saying that inside linebacker spot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a place that if you're looking, it was funny. I just had recalled, back to the very the very beginning of the season when I said, hey, we took out the center, we took out the quarterback, we took out the middle linebacker, we took out the safety, all in one fell swoop in one season that we had to replace. Unfortunately, middle linebacker might be a place that we're looking again. Now, there is speculation. Does Alex Singleton come back? Does he not come back? The team has an option there, in order to maybe move on. Now, I don't know if Walter Payton Award nominee Alex Singleton means anything or not. My guess is probably not, because when it really comes down to it, you need a player that's on the field that you feel confident in. Also, Michael Ronquillo just mentioning JL Skinner is not the answer either. JL Skinner hasn't come into that spot as of yet. Do you think his days are done as far as the potentially being a starting safety in this league, or does he have another year? Thoughts there before we go back over to middle linebacker, since Michael brought that up.
Yeah, we haven't seen a lot of JL Skinner, honestly. So that's the thing. It's like, I mean, I don't think you're not relying upon him to be a starter next year, no doubt. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they'll invest in the safety room, and I think they'll have to, kind of secure that secondary a little bit more. But JL Skinner, a good depth piece, but we just haven't seen a lot of him, so it's hard to kind of get that evaluation. I don't think you can rely on that, though. I mean, it's a bonus if JL Skinner comes in, in training camp next year and he ends up being the starter or finds his way into, more playing time on the defensive side of the ball, but not something you're going to go into next year just expecting, because he just hasn't earned that right up to this point. Hopefully it works out for him, and hopefully he makes a roster next year. But I think that's where we're at with JL Skinner. He's probably just going to be fighting for a roster spot next year, honestly.
And that's fair, man. I mean, I hate to say it, you got a little money to spend. You got some draft picks available. You're going to be looking to upgrade this roster. I did see, I'll get this. Barton or Singleton, if you had to choose, because they might just have to, which way are you going there, buddy?
Yeah, it depends on what Alex Singleton does. I mean, is he going to want to restructure his contract? Because I don't know that you're going to bring him back on the deal that he has. I believe I was looking at it right here. I think it's I think it's he has 2 years, 11 million that can cut him and save 10 million, around 10 million. So I think that he just needs to, depends on if he's wanting to restructure his contract. Again, coming off that torn Achilles that he had, and he's 31 years old, he's getting up there in age. I love Alex Singleton, but I'm not sure that they bring him back. Cody Barton, played fine. I think Cody Barton and Alex Singleton are kind of the same player for me. Anyways, Barton just came in here a little cheaper. Not sure what they're going to do to inside linebacker exactly. With Singleton, he's got another year left on his deal, but he might be one of those cap casualties that we're talking about here in a few weeks. So, yeah, I mean, if I had to choose, though, I would like Singleton back if he's on a restructured deal and maybe a deal with incentives, because I think he does bring a sense of leadership to this team. And if you can pair him up with somebody that's better in coverage, then I think that will help out Alex Singleton. I like Alex Singleton when it comes to stopping the run and what he does. He racks up a lot of tackles. And I thought Barton was fine. Barton, again, depending on the contract, depth is nice for him, but I like what Alex Singleton brings us from a leadership standpoint to this defense. So if I had to choose, probably Alex Singleton back on a restructured contract.
And I don't know if Alex Singleton will have much of a choice. Obviously, coming off of an injury this last season, I looked up the numbers. His cap number is about $7 million, but if we cut him, we save about $6 million. So, it's not in the favor of Alex Singleton to come back underneath this contract, because cutting him only really costs us $1 million, and we can move on. If he wants to be back with this team, he needs to probably come back and do it underneath the deal. There's a little bit of truth to this. PJ Locke will be fighting for a spot. He shouldn't have started really, but we are limited on choices. Yeah, I mean that's the long and the short of it. Michael Ronquillo, this is a big name that's been out there, but this is one of those names that, Trevor, like you were kind of talking about. You'd like to see how it really shifts out, because does Nick Bolton actually become a free agent, or does he end up getting re-signed?
Yeah.
He's a big piece. He's a big name, and he'd cost a lot of money if out on the free agency market. But he's also with a Super Bowl contending team year after year. Ask Tyreek Hill how he feels about maybe not being on the Chiefs at this point. So Nick Bolton might just want to come back to the Kansas City Chiefs. And those are things that, as you said, we'll see how this plays out. And through free agency, a little bit longer before we start jumping all over. We need this guy. We need that guy. Roy Osborne against Singleton. Yes, a different deal. And he looks good after the injury. Not sure if he can like he did. It's always difficult. I mean, we just saw, Javonte Williams, we've been looking for a couple years to come back from an injury and really be that guy. And what hasn't ever been that guy. But there's been many, many others that have come back from injury, looked good, sometimes even better than before. So it'll be a matter of, you mentioned it earlier. It bears mentioning again. Sean Payton, he said it was great to be able to put up there in front of all of our players that last year we were number 1 in non-injuries. This year they finished at number 2 in non-injuries. You know what I mean? For the year. And to tell those players, no, you don't need to go out to some specialist, some workout specialist in the off season. It looks like you need to come back here where we keep you healthy all season long. You don't know, but when Alex Singleton gets in front of those guys and they're able to put him through the steps that needed, they'll know if he's going to be able to come back and to what level of urgency we have to make a replacement for an Alex Singleton, in my opinion. So,
real quick, Keith, I have a question for you while we're talking inside linebackers. Could you see a scenario where the Broncos clean house at inside linebacker, because Justin Sternad's a free agent, Cody Barton's a free agent, and Alex Singleton, maybe he's a cap casualty, and they end up cutting him? I could absolutely see that. Maybe they just completely wipe the slate clean and bring in a whole new inside linebacker room. And that could be in free agency, a little bit of that in free agency. They sign somebody huge in free agency or invest there and then possibly invest in the draft. So I think that's something worth talking about, because I don't know that they're going to bring back, 1 or 2 of these guys next year. They might just clean house at inside linebacker.
Yeah, I could, just for a level of consistency to see one of those guys coming back. And if I had to then put my money on one, because you kind of did a little bit earlier, I'd say Cody Barton. Again, you're still looking for upgrades, hopefully in front of 2 steps in front of Cody Barton.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, I think that gives you the biggest level of consistency to say, well, we know what he had last year. We were okay with it, not great with it. And we could live with that if that's a backup solution to what we're going to do, and maybe have to go out and be aggressive in order to do so. Paul's brought it up too many times, so I got to get your thoughts on this. Najee Harris is a name that's on free agency. I talked about a guy that, would have to come in here, be that guy that fits the culture, that's that work hard type of guy, that, that work hard ethic, and, is all about football, loves practice, the whole 9 yards. I'll be honest, in every conversation I've seen with Najee Harris, I haven't got to sit down and talk with the guy, but he kind of sniffs out to be that type of player. What do you think about if that possibility arises to bring in a Najee Harris? How warm are you on that?
I think it's definitely got to be in consideration. It depends on where his market's at. I don't think you want to overpay too much for running backs because of this draft class. His running back draft class is very deep, and that's not just Ashton Genty. There's a Hampton from North Carolina, those 2 Ohio State running backs. So it's a deep running back class. I mean, I could see a situation where maybe the Broncos pass upon a running back in total in free agency, because I know Aaron Jones is out there as well, and he'll be a name thrown out there. But maybe they just go and get 2 running backs in the draft. I could definitely see that. So I would be definitely considering Najee Harris. I like Najee Harris a lot. I just wonder how much money he's going to command, and if does Denver want to spend a lot of money in the running back room. And maybe it's a scenario where they sign Najee Harris and they still take a running back pretty high. So, and I wouldn't be against that either. I really wouldn't be against that. Just depends on the price and what he's asking for. But I am a big fan of Najee Harris, and I'm not sure why the Steelers aren't trying to fight to re-sign him and keep him there, because he's been a 1,000-yard running back and is still 26, 25 years old. He's still pretty young for running back. So I really like Najee Harris, and would love seeing him in Denver for the right price.
If you're not watching, if you're only listening, got Albert Knoppers jumping in here too, just letting everybody know, one of the horsemen, one of our co-hosts on the Denver Bronco Roundup, saying he's at work, just saying hello, DVR and Posse, go Broncos, what a great season. Knicks for our franchise QB. Well, thank you, Albert. Thanks for dropping in. We're about ready to wrap up, man. But my thoughts on Najee Harris, and I don't say this very often, but from what I've seen, and again, as young as he is, and the type of guy that he is, and the type of production he's had, I'm willing to pay sometimes for that, knowing exactly what I have, Trevor.
Yeah.
It's like, you're right. This running back class is deep. Maybe that plays in your favor. Because it's like, hey, Najee, running backs are great and all, but this running back class is deep. There's a lot of people that might just go that direction rather than going into free agency. Your price drops a little bit. Either way, I think sometimes you pay for what you're, what's known. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Najee Harris might be one of those situations. And like I said, I'm not one of those guys, man. I'm with you. I love to draft guys. I love to develop guys. I think that's the way we need to go. We've seen it we just talked about it from the beginning of this episode, from Moss to Mims to Troy Franklin to some extent, certainly Bo Nix. You know what I mean? There are so many names that have stepped up already as rookies and played very well for us and been big pieces for us. But they took a little time sometimes to develop that along. And now we're starting to reap the rewards of that. So,
well, and I was just going to make one quick point of that to keep this is, what does Sean Payton think of Ashton Genty? Because rumor has it, he was pretty high on Jahmyr Gibbs a couple years ago, in the draft. So, does Denver want to be aggressive to move up to go get Ashton Genty? Because if you're going to go up and get Ashton Genty in the draft, I don't know if they're going to go out and sign a guy like Najee Harris. Maybe you sign still sign a running back, but maybe at a lower cost to back up Genty, or a different kind of change of pace running back from a guy like Genty. So I think that also depends on how much they want to invest in the draft when it comes to running back, and if Genty is a guy that they maybe want to trade up for and be aggressive for.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's been a few guys, obviously, that Sean Payton has let leak that, that's a guy that I definitely would have liked to have, and we were really close to getting that in one stop or another, right? But I could see it. I mean, you just got done talking about the linebacker room. Do you think we could basically sweep it clear and start from scratch? Well, same could be said for the running back room. Javonte Williams. Honestly, maybe Audric Estime has the best chance because of you just got him last year, and you did invest a little bit more than you did a Tyler Bidet, for instance. So it's like maybe he can stick around, but there's certainly an opportunity to clear that running back room given the right scenario. And if you're talking about possibly spending a little bit of money free agency wise and looking at it potentially higher in the draft to get that guy, you never know. You never know. And we could be looking at a whole different running back room this next in just a few months, quite honestly. Geez, before you know it'll be draft time and then cut downs, and who knows, man. It's amazing how quickly it does happen. I do want to give a shout out to one. Now, I haven't watched a whole lot of tape. I still want to do a ton of evaluation, but Michael Ronquillo, he says he's going after a running back, Cam Scatabo or Trayvon Henderson, Ohio State Buckeyes player. Scatabo, obviously from Arizona State. I'll be honest, I caught a little bit of Scatabo this season, and he's a pretty impressive running back. It bears me looking and watching and more tape as we get closer to draft time there, Trevor.
Yeah, and then you're talking about, as of right now, those guys are ranked they're round 2, round 3 guys. So that's where you'd be investing. So what do you do with your first round pick at that point? There's a lot of options the Broncos will have this offseason to improve their roster, and it's going to be interesting how they plan to attack it.
Yeah. Pearl saying they have him Genty going 10 to 13. Paul saying he might fall. ESPN mock he did. Roy's like he could go higher. Yeah, I mean, this is just it. This is where we're at. Don't get me wrong. This is a wrap up of this fantastic season the Denver Broncos had. Really, like I said, I started off saying, all the questions they had and really where they end up going. But now the questions start becoming after this is, how do we improve this roster? How do we spend the money? How do we use the draft picks? Are there any trades? All of this is going to flush out free agency. There's a lot of big questions and a lot of research. I know I'll be doing, you'll be doing, as well as our good friends on the rest of the posse, the Judge and Albert as well. So we're looking forward to this offseason. I'm looking forward to this offseason, but what a pleasure this Denver Broncos team was to watch. What a pleasure it was to see really a team come together, develop, become a team. And honestly, the tears in the locker room by Nick Benito or whoever else, those are tears of passion, man. Those are tears of knowing, wanting, loving what you thought was possible with this team and falling short of your expectations, and wanting to get back there is, I think, going to be a fantastic destiny to kind of see play out this offseason and next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And guess what? You're not having to go search for a quarterback. You have your guy in the building. You just have to worry about finding the pieces to put around him. And looking at it, man, this is what I've learned as well. I'm thankful the Broncos took Bo Nix and took a quarterback last year, because last year's quarterback class is strong. And I think we just kind of detailed not too long ago when we talked about, at least 3 quarterbacks that look very impressive this year: Jayden Daniels, Bo Nix, Drake May. And this year's draft, who? There's a lot of question marks around these guys. And I mean, would JJ McCarthy be the first pick, first quarterback taken off the board this year? What would Penix be in this draft? It just makes you, really appreciate Sean Payton's evaluation of Bo Nix and going after the quarterback, going after you getting your quarterback last offseason. So you're not having to answer that question long term this offseason, being where this quarterback class is at right now, which is not very strong, is not as strong as last year's quarterback class. So that's something that I think Broncos country should definitely be thankful for. You have Bo Nix, he's in place, and you're not have to answer that question, that quarterback question on who's going to be your long-term guy anymore, because you have that guy in the building.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's so nice. I mean, doing a podcasting for a few years and, having to, put on a good face about Case Keenum going out there and, being your franchise guy. Boy, it sure feels a lot different, man. Feels a lot different. Bo Nix, Sean Payton, the ownership group. The way that George Payton has integrated in with all these new faces and the scouts, whether it be pro scouts or those guys, collegiate scouts out there doing their work. There was Ben Lowry and his fantastic work about getting this team in shape and not getting injuries. I mean, everything. It's just been a pleasure to watch and pleasure to podcast this fantastic season of the Denver Broncos. I'm loving what's to come. And as Michael was saying, great show tonight, Keith and Trevor and Gobo Broncos, man. Great show tonight. The posse, Michael Ronquillo and Karen and Paul and Roy and Ernie and, I don't know, all the fantastic names that I ran. Victor earlier. I'm just trying to recall names at this point. I can't scroll through them all. Man, I appreciate you guys coming along for the ride for this entire season. But as we mentioned earlier, it's not over, man. We go live every Tuesday, every Friday, 7:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We're here for you all off season. We talked about it. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. You never know when big news is going to hit. I mean, I don't know if Ben Kotwika was big enough news to jump on here and podcast about, but news does happen at any given moment. We're going to try to be there for you every step of the way, man. Let's get some final thoughts, Trevor. We're just a little bit over, man, but it was a fantastic episode, man.
Yeah, it's a fantastic episode, and just I'll make this short. Just thank you guys for everything. And the posse, you guys are amazing. The support you guys continue to show us each and every episode. This is why we come back. I mean, we do this for you. We do, we dive deep into, a lot of the information we get. We watch the film. So we put all that time and effort and come on here and talk with you guys and share our thoughts on it. And and do our own research to do it. So really appreciate everybody in the posse for being amazing, and can't wait to spend this off season with you guys and be here for you guys every step of the way, every single move throughout the off season the Broncos make, and just very, very thankful for you guys, and nothing but love for our posse. And you guys are amazing. Like Keith said, we do it for you. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Enjoy football and enjoy yourselves. Be safe, stay warm. And we'll see you guys next time. And as always, go Broncos.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Trevor signing off. Go Broncos. But, man, I'll tell you what, I do want you guys to know how much you're loved. I do want you to know that we're going to be with you through the entire off season. Can't wait to jump in and maybe do some draft coverage as well. I'll be talking with those K&K boys as well. Be talking to Patrick Wiltsey as well. Aloha, Mr. Patrick Wiltsey. Good to see you, sir. But we do got to get out of here. Can't wait to be in on another episode. It's going to be right around the corner. We'll see you guys on Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. But until then, make sure you keep those boots in the stirrups, your guns in the holsters, and those amazing Denver Broncos right there in your heart. Until next time, we're going to get out of here. Have a fantastic night, everyone. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back again on Tuesday. Good night.